That's new. I just got an email telling me that Dropbox accidentally updated its app on my phone. That's weird. Alrighty. And hello, Lynette.
Hello.
Oh, that's a nice color on you, Lynette.
Thank you. I just put it on 2 minutes ago.
Okay. Oh my God, it's so hot in here.
Just those protein sweats.
No, it's just Texas.
All right, give it a little bit more.
Are we on yet?
We are live, but I do need somebody to share that link into the groups.
I think it was already shared.
No,
Okay, how does one do that?
it's in the, I'll take care of it. It's all good.
Oh no, it looks like Brenda's doing
We're
it.
just gonna feign, you know, stupidity.
Oh, it's Brenda.
Oh, there's
Brenda's doing it from the car.
Fantastic.
She's magical.
All right, looks like we have nobody watching us right now.
Brenda's done it. Brenda's done the.
Right, looks like we have nobody watching us right now. Nothing is as awesome as hearing myself on a delay.
Who's not muted?
Nothing is as awesome as hearing myself on a delay. So now,
I have like 100 tabs open. I'm looking for what
Wow.
it means.
Oh my.
aha, Lynette, it's you. You'll need to clear all that because for some reason you've got a whole bunch of them open. I think everybody else is muted right now. So if you want to unmute yourself, as long as your name isn't Lynette, you're okay. Hey, everybody. Sorry about all the chaos with the noise. Lynette broke it. Oh, fun. All right. Give this just a little bit. Y'all kind of know the drill by now. So you give us questions, we give you answers, and probably awkward humor. At least I find it humorous. I'm still on team trying not to cuss on these, so I'm going to do my very best not to use swear words. But
When did that rule take place?
last week I tried. I only said 2 swear words last week.
But is that like rule of? Does that rule?
Do you
for
guys
all
have
of us
like
or
a-
just you?
Just me.
Okay, so the rest of us can just drop the
Y'all
F-bomb?
can be dropping F-bombs and whatever. I'm good with that. The community may rebel, but I'm good with it.
They're worse than us, probably.
Most of them, some of them, I don't know. Hey guys.
Do you guys have like a 9 o'clock timing where after 9 o'clock you can swear here?
Yeah.
Before 9 o'clock you can't swear. After 9 o'clock.
9
you can.
a.m. Yes.
What do they call it? After the watershed? Isn't that the
Yes.
yeah, okay, yeah.
So isn't it 9 over there or is it 8?
I think it's 8 o'clock here. That's
Okay.
the time frame. But yeah, I only know the reference to the watershed because of the Top Gear on BBC. So
Well, you don't have
yeah,
it then. Okay.
yeah, they got away from yeah. In the U.S., technically for cable television, so non-broadcast, I think they can get away with whatever they want, whenever they want. They just choose to censor themselves before like 8 or 9 o'clock. But any broadcast television, so like NBC, ABC, CBS, they have like specific guidelines as far as what they can say when. So yeah, that's all I know. People, y'all don't ask any questions. You're going to learn some really weird trivia about television history. We're gonna have Lynette regale you with however she just opened 600 instances of the chat at once, or we'll have Farzana tell you about how television works with the 17 BBC channels in England. So, alrighty. Have my threats worked? No. Amy's asking, what are we doing next week? I'm gonna be enjoying steak with the coaching team.
Not tonight.
She said next week in the chat. She said, what are you all doing next week? That's what I'm doing next week. Although I'm totally willing to hop on a plane and just eat steak with people. I mean, like, that's a thing.
Is that a thing? I guess
I
we
don't
could make
know.
we could make it a thing.
Showing up at people's house with a tote full of like raw meat and being like, where's your grill? Come on.
Can you swing by my place between October and April?
It's
The
a
weather's
very broad window of time.
Better than summer. Other
Okay.
people can have you during the summer.
Okay. You just don't want me there when it's 127 degrees and I can't figure out why the grass doesn't catch fire.
Well, we do all of our grilling at like 7 a.m.
Mhm.
right now, when it's only 95 degrees outside. So I thought you'd like to skip that.
I'm a big fan of not catching fire or self-immolating based on outdoor temperature. So cool. We have questions. Erin gets the gold star for the first question for the day. She said, it's a super simple question and I feel like I should know, but with hammer curls, I get to a point that I can't do them together. Is it okay to do one arm and then the other, or should they be in sync? No, that's a shake weight, Mel. We don't have shake weights in the.
Those
Sometimes you do that,
commercials.
it looks like
Those commercials.
Look more like maracas, actually.
that's the word I was looking for, but I was like, the word wouldn't come to me, and all I could
He
think
was, he was looking for maracas, but he got shake weight.
well, the shake weight it was but when I said it and Mel did this like really tightly,
I was like, is that a drink?
it looked like Carmen Miranda with a little like and I couldn't remember the word, and all I could think of was the word maricon, which means something totally different in Spanish. And so I was like, I can't say that word. I can't remember what it is. And so I wasn't. And thank you, Lisa. You came out with it. So
Well, I'm thinking of the South Park at this point.
all of that being said, hammer curls, one arm or both arms? No. Also, I'll get yelled at if I don't put us in Brady Bunch view. There we go.
Preferably, it's best to follow the program as instructed. I would ask first why don't you make a form check to see? Doing both of them at the same time usually is more difficult because you have less leverage. But understand that lifting less, but because exercise is more difficult, it's not the same as if you lifted more with another hand. Let me put it in another way. Even though you're lifting less, the effort would be about the same. So don't worry really too much about it. I would encourage you to do the exercise as instructed. I would love to see a form check. Otherwise, in the end, it really doesn't matter that much.
One thing I would add here too, Luis, and I think you'll vouch for me on this. It's really easy when you're doing hammer curls single arm to turn it into like the Running Man thing where like you're really not doing anything. You're just
swinging,
bringing the weights up as hard as you can, like you're trying to do Nordic track skiing. What you're trying to do in that movement is to isolate the biceps to the peak and actually to really bring that movement in. So you should see or feel the biceps basically tense up and almost prevent you from going any further up in that position. And a lot of times people like fling the weights, and even if they do it two-handed, they just look like they're milking the world's like oldest cow. it's just really long where they're just bringing the weight up and kind of haphazardly doing it. So if you find yourself caught between lighter weight and doing it as instructed or trying to go heavier and doing single arms, I would go lighter, but I would be super, super diligent on trying to pull that biceps peak as tight and as big as I can make it with every single rep, to the point that it feels like your biceps is going to cramp before you move back down in the eccentric phase. So, yeah. Alrighty, next question. By the way, Beth said that we're invited any day of the week, as long as I bring meat. Apparently, that's how things work. Sarah said, if we get off schedule with the workouts, is there a way to consolidate workouts and catch up, or cut down to one active day of rest or something? So a couple of thoughts really quickly. I think you're level 2. I'm going by memory here, so slap me in the back of the head if I'm wrong. But you could, because you've got 4 mandatory days and 3 effectively off days, you can choose to do the alternative day. I would sub out the alt day for a missed workout and try and catch up, but keep my 2 back-to-back active recovery days together. And if you're missing more than one, I would really encourage you to step back and kind of re-look at priorities, scheduling. And I don't mean that in a dismissive way. It's just sometimes if we don't plan and budget for the time gets away from us, right? And I cannot remember the name of it, but there's a law out there that says that any volume of work will grow to the size of the time that you have available. So if you don't plan for it, the time is just going to swallow itself up, right? It's just going to, you're going to find that you don't have time. But that's, I think the best advice that I could give you would be ditch the hit day first, and if it's more than one day that you're missing, kind of double check what's going on with your schedule and your life. Anybody else? And the Brady,
No, I think that's
To work out the same day.
spot on. Yeah.
okay, good deal. By the way, does anybody else think that Malcolm looks like Tarzan from the Disney cartoon Tarzan?
No, I
Take
just
your
pulled my hair
Take
up.
your hair back down. Take it back down so people can see what you saw when you came in here.
I'm gone with the
Like,
questions.
I'm waiting for this. Like it's some.
Poor Malcolm, always getting
Wait.
picked on.
Well, he doesn't wear pants to these calls, firstly. But
I do.
Secondly, we only pick on the people that we love. So, and that's how we comfort ourselves at night when we realize that we're terrible people. And by we, I mean me. So Amy asked.
Also, going back to that last question, don't do 2 training days on one day.
Yeah. Never.
I would honestly almost rather you miss a training session for a week than to try and double up, because I have seen it happen. And then the next day people are walking like people without knees. And then the next day they're even sore and they don't get out of bed. And then by the 3rd day, they're calling into work saying, I can't make it in. And by the 4th day, they quit. And it's all because they tried to shoehorn 3 hours worth of programming into an hour and a half in one day. So yeah, definitely agree. And Christina said, can I work out? I'm sorry, Christina, I saw you said you were only going to be here briefly. Can I work out before just a hormone blood test, or should I wait? Doing estrogen and progesterone tomorrow, finally. It really shouldn't impact anything, but I would just go in the morning as early as possible to get the blood work done, if that's something you can do. And just get it done so that you can get on with your day and train.
Yeah. Here's like to add to that answer, it's always preferably to aim in the side of caution. So basically, it's best to take any test, medical or DEXA scan, etc., first thing in the morning, fasted, and before training. If for whatever reason you cannot train that day, nothing bad happens. Again, it's not the end of the world if you don't train for a day. So it's best to take any test fasted, unless, of course, the test requires that you eat something, right? But in most cases, fasted first thing in the morning and without having trained, because remember that there are certain things that do impact hormones and blood readings, etc. And one of those can be strength training. So after a few hours, your blood markers and even some hormones may be skewed a little, and some doctors are not really well versed into this, and some conditions may appear that may scare them, or some results may look a little bit different. So it's best to just go, again, fasted and before training.
Yep, absolutely.
I usually try to schedule on Mondays simply because my active rest days are Saturday and Sunday. And that way there's no impact from those training days either.
Good call. Okay. Renee said, is it possible that dextrose with my pre-workout could be triggering sugar cravings? I've been using Candy Rockets. That's the Smarties for those of us in the States. I think I can never get it right. One place calls them Fizzers, another place calls them Rockets, and another place calls them Smarties. And in the rest of the world, Smarties that the US people think about, which are these little horrid discs of sugar, are chocolate covered like M&Ms in a sleeve looking thing. So either way,
Full of information.
what's that?
You're just full of random information.
When we started with the TKD discussion several years ago,
remember that.
I got an obnoxious lecture from every Aussie, New Zealander,
They're like, why are you eating chocolate?
Englander, like, how does eating Smarties work? And I'm like, it's literally pure sugar. And they're like, it's got chocolate. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. And apparently there were trademark issues, and I spent entirely too long. So I have a condition known as obsessive compulsive personality disorder, which causes me to go down way too many rabbit holes. I got presented with that information, and then I read 3 hours worth of literature on the lawsuits over the copyright of Smarties. I know entirely too much about the history of the Nestle candies and all that fun stuff. That's why I know ridiculous amounts of stupid.
You said it, Melissa.
We don't have those kind of Smarties in the US, because we have the chocolate ones.
Yes,
That's what I thought when I first read it.
In the US, Smarties are what I think in England they call fizzers or something. I know that's what they're called in Australia. Fizzies or fizzers or something. In Canada, they're called rockets.
Yeah.
Which either way, so here will be my comment.
Anyway.
It would be very, very unusual just because your pre-workout protein is going to be sweet, I imagine already. So adding 6 grams, 5 grams worth of dextrose really is not, in a volume of 20 or 24 ounces, going to add that much in the realm of sweetness. Thank you. You literally went and found Smarties candies. Thank you. I just cannot fathom that it would be the case. However, at least physiologically, I cannot imagine that it would be the case. But I do think that if you take, a bag of granulated dextrose and you're scooping it and pouring it into something, there can be sort of a hedonic or sort of a mental thing where you're adding sugar in your mind into a pre-workout drink, and therefore it's almost like hedonically causing you to think that the drink is sweeter and triggering cravings. I would think it's probably, you've been with us for a while, so it would be unusual that it would be just getting used to being hungry or getting used to these macros, which is the case for a lot of people. I just can't fathom a world in which 6 grams or 5 grams of dextrose is creating the difference between no cravings and cravings.
Some of my campers have said that when they do the Smarties or the Rockets or whatever, that it kind of has played mental mind games on them because they're introducing THC. And so some of of them have done better with the dextrose powder instead of the Smarties, just because of the mental hurdles that they're overcoming. So.
Yeah, one of the reasons we switched to dextrose is because flavors tend to trigger thoughts, on a lot of things. And so this Smarties being kind of citric acid, fruit flavored or whatever, dextrose powder just tastes like sweet. So throwing it into a shake that's already got an artificial sweetener in it really doesn't change the sweetness profile very much, which is why we kind of made that pivot and said, hey, if you're not comfortable doing the Smarties, do this. But in the grand scheme of things, if it's creating an issue, let's play it by ear over the next couple of weeks, and then we can chat through it and figure out if we need to make modifications to macros or whatever. I just don't want to get into a situation where after 1 week we're making any kind of broad sweeping decisions on anybody's macros.
Agree. I would like to add that again, like Terry said, 5 grams of any carb is of no consequence in regards to cravings. Or like I've had the comments from some clients also that they feel they are gaining weight because their carbs increased 5 or 10 grams. Let's take into account it's 5 grams, 10 grams, it's about 40 calories. In the grand scheme of things, it's nothing, and this will not make you gain body fat. You may gain a little bit of water, but the water gain from 5, 10 grams of carbs is going to be negligible. If you're gaining like more than 2-3 pounds, it's not the 40 calories, it's something else. And likely that something else usually is bad adherence to the diet, be it because one is not tracking or because one is probably taking bites here and there. But yeah, like Tyler said, I usually what I do for the carbs pre-workout, instead of having a Smartie or so, what I like better is just a spoonful of Carol Light syrup, which is basically non high fructose corn syrup, basically liquid sugar, the one we can use, basically glucose. And it mixes very well with strong coffee. Takes the bitterness away, and with the taste of the shake, of your protein shake, it really doesn't taste that much. We're talking about 5 grams of glucose. It's about what a packet of sugar would taste like. So if you add that to, again, a strong bitter coffee, it will very much taste like your regular cappuccino.
Okay. No problem. Be safe. It was kind of weird that I thought that she was driving with the dog in one hand, the steering wheel in the other, and the camera. I was trying to figure out. It's like the people who have like a can of Coke in one hand and a cigarette in the other, and they're like down the road with the window open. I'm like, what are you driving with? Like what appendage are you using to steer the steering wheel? Because your hands are completely off of it. So anyway, Tyler's chasing rabbits today. Cool. I think that's the last questions. Anybody? Otherwise, this is going to be the shortest call we've ever had.
Yeah.
I saw a question on the Facebook about cryotherapy. Did that get answered?
It did, if it's the question that I'm thinking it was, but just to address it here. So one of the things that causes muscle to grow or to repair and to grow bigger and stronger is actually inflammation. And one of the things that cryotherapy does very, very well, in fact, probably better than nonsteroidal anti-inflammatories, is to reduce systemic inflammation, especially in muscle tissue. So it is ridiculously useful for people who are healing from injury, surgery, whatever, where the tissue is by definition radically inflamed. It's useful, hugely useful. For recovering from exercise, if you're going to do it, you should at least wait a day between training sessions and when you actually engage in cryotherapy. because we actually want the mild to moderate inflammation in the muscle tissues that have been worked. That's part of what tells the body, hey, he did a lot of work or she did a lot of work, and we need to make those muscle groups bigger and stronger, and we need to cement the connection between the brain and the muscle so that the muscles can move when the brain and how the brain tells them to, and so we don't get spastic reaction to something. It's more of a control movement because the brain has more fine motor control of those muscle groups. So I'm not a fan for post-training recovery, and I've seen a lot of people who are like training for 2 hours and then they immediately rush over to the cryotherapy booth at their gym and they jump in there with like their mittens on and their underwear or whatever and like freeze their junk off and then hop out, and they're like, oh, I feel so refreshed. And I'm like, well, that's great, but the evidence is you just completely neutered the post-training effect of everything you just did. And that's probably okay for somebody who's kind of at their genetic potential. But for people who are still trying to build muscle mass or still trying to learn to grow their muscles stronger and bigger, I just don't see a huge amount of value there. Luis, I don't know if you've had any different experiences or if you're familiar with any other studies that I'm not on this.
No, very much. I've seen it both ways, pros and cons. I would like, if you want to test it, the usual recommendation is to have it spaced as much further away from your training session, and also preferably on a day you don't lift. Because I've read both papers that say it may be beneficial for muscle growth and repair, but others very much like you stated, it goes against the main way muscle grows, which is inflammation. You want very much a clear inflammation signal to go to the muscles. That's why also there are some other theories that say that doing a ketogenic diet, because if it's anti-inflammatory per se, may help with better muscle growth in some cases, very much because the signal for muscle growth is going to be clear because you don't have this noise from other sources of inflammation. So again, it really depends. I would ask, what is the reasoning for wanting to do this therapy? Because it's also not something that it's not really fun. It's not like going into a sauna, right? It's actually something for people who are, well, who like to test new things. And I've done it once. It's not something that I really like.
I shivered for 4 hours.
Yeah, basically. But again, the jury's still out in this one. There's no real consensus yet.
Cool. Any other questions? Let me check and see if anybody dropped anything.
Danny Lewis, he has a question.
Any stance on beta-alanine? If you ever want to feel your face tingle like it's got 10,000 bees crawling all over it, take too much beta-alanine. But I do actually think that it's probably beneficial, useful, even if for no other reason than the tingles make it really hard for me to want to sit down and waste time in the gym. But it does definitely feel like there are bees crawling all over me if I take it fasted or, outkick my coverage on my tolerance for it. And this, so there is that.
Yeah, I would ask again, like everything in life, especially regarding supplements. I go, when people ask, what is your stance on this or that? What is the context? What for? Because beta-alanine does have a lot of applications, some of them for weight training, but also for some studies for glucose tolerance, cardiovascular health. So what are you curious about it, or what do you want to do with it? The normal protocol for strength training is about 200 milligrams, if I recall correctly. That's normally what you want to have 20, 30 minutes before training. And very much what it does is, like Tyler said, it gives you very much this tingling sensation, which is called a niacin flush. In a way, what it does is helps you get some nutrients better into your bloodstream more faster, just to put it bluntly. If you take more than that, or your body is not really used into the feeling, you're gonna feel horrible. Tyler has seen me overdose on that quite a few times, and it's like if you were bathed in pixie dust that you want to shave your ears out and your face is red, and it hurts like hell. So it's not something that I recommend.
Here, just to
much like that.
Just to prove that it's not just Tyler who experiences the 10,000 bees crawling all over them thing. That is the moment when beta alanine kicks in. I don't know that there's a lot of evidence out there to suggest that it is actually all that helpful in terms of muscle performance and muscle recovery. But it's one of those things where if it keeps you hype and it keeps you up and moving and it keeps you shaving an hour and 30-minute workout down to an hour and 10 minutes, now you've got 20 minutes more of your day that you can go be a dad, a wife, a husband, a mom, a friend, a son, a daughter, whatever. Like, I'm all about maximum effort for minimum, or maximum efficiency for minimum effort. So if something like that gets you in the gym and out of the gym and you get it done, then by all means, load that stuff up in a syringe and shoot it intravenously for all I care. Just get it down. There was a question about our thoughts on 5-HTP as a sleep aid and potentially as an appetite suppressant.
It's actually in your manual.
Oh, say it's in the manual.
Yeah, it's in the manual. Everything you want to know about it, it's in the manual. It's a precursor to serotonin, and that's why it may help on some people reduce cravings. Now, here's the deal. Don't take it just because I've seen people that go and buy it because they think it's going to basically make them eat less. And most of the times when you have cravings, from my experience, they are more psychological related. They are induced by stress or a certain situation that triggered it. So in this case, they won't work. Remember that serotonin is a neurotransmitter, and it's more going to be hormone-based when you may have something not really going like it should be working in your body, or probably you're going through an hormone imbalance, blah, blah, blah. In this case, it may help. But again, if your triggers or your cravings are mood related or stress related, it's really not going to do much.
One thing that I want to add here is if you are taking any sort of antidepressant medication or anti-anxiolytic, so any anti-anxiety medication, you need to stay away from 5-HTP and from serotonin supplementation, full stop. You need to run that past your psychiatrist, your GP, whoever it is that's doing the prescribing of that medication. You need to confirm whether or not the medication that you've been prescribed is it going to be impacted in any way by 5-HTP or by serotonin supplements directly. If you are going to take it, probably a split dose is best. So something like 150 to 200 milligrams twice a day is usually pretty effective. But there are people who get a better response by loading it at night. But the ones who load it at night tend not to get quite as much of the appetite suppressive effects from what I've seen. Now, that
basically, it has that warning. It should not be taken with any drug that is neurological in nature. There's even a warning that it may be lethal in some cases. So again, don't take something just because.
Yes. That being said, it can be effective and it can be worked in, but it needs to be worked in the right doses for the right person in the right context with the right frame of mind, which are kind of the four big caveats for any supplementation. There's a diagram that I love that shows the whether or not to supplement, and it's like, do I have a condition or a situation for which the supplement is going to resolve the issue? Yes, no. And it goes through this whole stepwise fashion of like even down to the point of, can I afford to pay for this supplement over the course of a month? So there are a number of things that we need to consider that aren't just, is it effective, but is it lethal? Is probably a really important one to consider. So there you go.
I think we skipped a question from Danny before his.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He had a SKD, TKD question. How do you know when it's a time to move from strict to targeted?
Well, basically the answer is you are hiring us for us to decide when. It's not something that you say, you wake up one day and just go, okay, I'm ready. Here's the basic layout. First, you have to hit a certain, or what we do is you have to hit a certain body fat percentage, and then you have to maintain that for quite a while. It's not like you magically wake up one day at, I don't know, 13% body fat as a male, and then you can start to add carbs. No, you have to get there. You have to maintain that, because what we are looking for is, in a way, that your hormones are primed to go to this next step. It's what we're doing here is playing with insulin sensitivity in a way. We're helping your body and your muscles absorb a little bit more of glycogen and use better glucose for the purpose it was designed to be during training. But first, there have to come certain metabolic, enzymatic adaptations, and also psychological. It's not just like we always say, you lose the weight, and if you lose the weight very rapidly, you are not, or you have not acquired the habits that will help you maintain a new level of leanness. The same happens with certain dietary adjustments. You have to first go through the process, you have to master it, and then we slowly give you more or teach you the next step.
Helps if I take myself off the mute. I said, trust the process and trust the coach. All right, we'll give it just another minute or two to see if anybody else has any last minute questions. Otherwise, we will go ahead and shut this one down early. Because otherwise, you're just going to see us sitting here for 20 minutes surfing the internet and trying to figure out if we want that third cup of coffee tonight or not. Look at Lisa.
Another question. I think there's a question. I think Sherry or somebody. Anyone see that? I lost my tab.
She said we'll be living out of a hotel for work for about 5 days. The best options for meals and workouts. I'm sorry, I did miss that. Things that don't require refrigeration, so things like pouched or tinned tuna fish or chicken are great. Sardines are great if you're somebody who the macros work for oil packed sardines. Beef jerky is another great option if you can get like keto carne or People's Choice or something that's very, very low sugar. That's another good option. It's there. The thing with beef jerky you have to be careful of is that it is very, very low moisture. So it is quite nutrient dense or quite protein dense and therefore quite calorie dense per ounce. It's almost 2 times as dense for protein grams per ounce or per 28 grams of serving than traditional meat with its full moisture content. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you're going to go beef jerky, just plan on kind of having an empty stomach a little bit. If you're going to do beef jerky, I would definitely do something like salads or something along with to kind of help add some bulk and some volume to your stomach so that you're not super hungry. Electrolyte needing to be on point goes without saying, but I will add in a hotel room. Sleep tends to be crap, and getting electrolytes nailed, especially in the evening, can actually help to make that sleep a little better. Not to mention the fact that a lot of times we don't drink as much and we don't really focus on that as much when we're in an unfamiliar situation. So y'all have any other foods you typically use when you travel, hotels?
Yeah, I always get hard-boiled eggs. I can get them at any gas station, Walmart, any grocery store, pre-boiled. If you get a fridge in your hotel room, if you can't, just ask if you can rent an individual one for your room. But I like to go to Whole Foods near where I'm going to be, and I usually get a separate container for my proteins and a separate container for my carbs. And I just pick some proteins and I put them together. I eyeball if it's a little bit of pork, a little bit of chicken, and then they weigh it and charge you by ounces. And so then I go in Chronometer and I roughly calculate, you know, if it's pork loin or chicken breast or whatever the protein is, and I plug it into Chronometer based on the ounces that they weighed to charge me. It's a real simple way to get pre-prepared foods that they'll weigh for you if you don't have a scale with you. And then I like to get, just go to the grocery store and get like hard-boiled eggs ahead of time, tuna pouches, paper plates, forks if they don't have them there. Protein powder in a pinch only, but you bring that with just in case you don't have something and you can't get away.
And if you're going for work, usually work gives you some kind of stipend for meals, at least breakfast, dinner type thing. And, you know, if you're literally not leaving the room, you know, you can get Grubhub to deliver in most places and whatnot, and order foods that you would eat at home, review the menus ahead of time. I mean, I just came back from vacation for 8 days, and we had an empty fridge in the room that we intended on filling, and we wound up not, because I was able to order things from restaurants cheaply, expensively, whatever. But just eat like you're going to eat at home. If you order out, don't eat the appetizer, don't get a dessert, don't, you know, substitute out rice and substitute out, you know, the carbs that you wouldn't be eating one way or the other. Salads, protein.
One thing that I would add here too, and this is just my inner cheapskate talking, if you take your food with you, you absolutely can pocket that per diem. So I used to make money when my company would send me to travel on trips. I would pocket $200, $300 in per diem money over the course of 5 or 7 days. And I would literally travel with, y'all don't judge me, but beef jerky, Quest bars, pouch chicken, that sort of thing. Or I would go to dinners with salespeople who always like to impress their client by being the one to pay with their credit card. And I would totally let them. So that's a possibility or an option as well. And you know, but yeah, all the foods are, keep it simple too. Don't try and overcomplicate things. You know, don't be afraid of the grilled chicken sandwich at a Wendy's. Don't, you know, just pull it back to its chicken breast form and buy some bulk spinach in a bag, and, you know, get yourself your favorite dressing and make a meal of it. I mean, you can literally do that. Uber Eats, Grubhub that was mentioned. There's a lot of those services out there. But yeah, that ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And I realize it may be a little late right now for you, given it's going to happen like now. But for in the future, exactly what Lisa said, go research, do the due diligence, and Lynette, you hit the nail on the head too. You know, call the hotel, see if you can rent a fridge or if one's provided. I've even had hotels go so far as to say we can't and we don't, but we have a staff fridge and you can put anything you want to in there and we'll label it with your room number. Usually, especially if you're traveling on a corporate docket, they're way more accommodating because they realize that they're putting a lot of revenue at risk for the company if they say no. But people don't get in hotels a lot of times because they don't ask. So ask, and I would even go so far as to walk down to the lobby and maybe find like the shift manager or the night shift manager who's going to be less busy with guest stuff. Just say, hey, where do you go for breakfast? You know, where would you go that's close to, because most of those folks, they're tired when they leave. They just want to run out, grab breakfast, and get back to their house, right? So because they don't want to cook, especially the reason I say the night shift is because they're going to be kind of the shifted and the most tired. So they're going to eat at restaurants really close to the hotel, and they might be able to provide some insight also.
And just prioritize protein. My daughter was in the hospital this week and last week, but I knew I couldn't get decent protein there because it was like little teeny chicken breast with this nasty seasoning on it, and no one knew how many ounces it was, and it was really dry and nasty. It was like $8 for some little bit of lunch I got. So I cooked up chicken thighs I had on hand, and I think it was 163 grams of protein of chicken thighs, like 35 grams of fat or something. So I sauteed that really fast, stuck it in a cooler, brought it with me, and then the cafeteria at the hospital had half steamed sweet potatoes. I get more carbs on recomp. And then there was a steamed broccoli. So I added what I usually eat at home anyways is broccoli and sweet potatoes. So I added that a la carte from the hospital to my refrigerated baggies of chicken thighs in my cooler that I bring a little like a lunch cooler with me. So there's ways to do it, but I always prioritize protein. If nothing else, I get that in.
Or just be like, please, and he used to give me chicken from Costco.
Yeah.
Just buy that chicken. That mutant Mexican chicken that Costco sells at the Costco next to his house.
Yeah, it's big.
How do you get a 7-pound chicken? Like, how is this a thing? And it's got like 8 drumsticks too, which tells me it may not be.
Because I'm good. That's why.
I'm kidding on the 8 drumsticks part, but it is one of the largest chickens I think I've ever seen in my life.
For $5.99 too.
Yeah, it's like $4.50 US.
Yeah.
For me, when I'm traveling, I'm on damage limitations, so I limit myself to 2 meals. Because sometimes you can do the protein, you can do the carbs, but it's the fat that is hard to judge with other people cooking. So I tend to do 2 bigger meals.
And don't be afraid at Mexican food restaurants. Just go in there and order a pound of chicken breast. Sometimes they'll do that. Same with barbecue places like Brenda did today. Yeah. Just ask.
Rosanna, you should share about your traveling. What is it called?
Travel monkey.
Exercise monkey. Well. Yeah, that thing.
Yeah. No, I should have shares in it, but I don't. No, it's a really small portable workout. It's like a TRX, which I take wherever I go. It's tiny. It folds up about that big, and I can pop it into any of my bags, and I can work out, do body weight sort of exercises anywhere, even in the bathroom of an airport or something. So I take that, and I think I've shared some videos on the Facebook. Maybe I'll do it again for this camp on workouts that I've done with it. So it's if you don't have access to a gym with equipment, then that's a really good piece of thing to take with you.
Brenda mentioned barbecue by the pound as well, and yeah, I've done that before too. I'll find, and Luis has done it with me before too. I think probably involuntarily, I've just made him do it. Go find the nearest barbecue smoke joint and call them up, or go to their website, or just ask like, hey, do you sell by the pound? And then when they say yes, I buy 2 pounds of chicken or a pound of brisket, and I eat it there because they think I'm going to take it with me, and they're wrong. So, but you can absolutely get, 2 pounds, 3 pounds, especially if you've got a fridge in your room, you can keep it there. And actually, smoked chicken without the skin is fantastic on top of like a spinach salad with a little bit of dressing or something on top. So you can kind of wing it, but don't expect the meals to be exactly like mom made at home. Like just make it super simple and just kind of roll with it.
And that's how I order my brisket. I get half a pound at a time, and I always say lean brisket, no jiggle. And usually they get a laugh out of that, so they listen. I'm like, I really want lean brisket. I want no jiggle on it, and I get the best lean brisket, half pound at a time.
And brisket makes me drool, so we're good. So Imad asked, she said, warm-up sets for bench press. I'm doing 45-pound dumbbells. For the warm-up sets, I tried doing 2 sets with 35 pounds, and I have tried lighter weights. My first working set always seems to still be difficult.
How much is she using?
She's using 45-pound dumbbells. She said she's doing warm-ups with 35-pound dumbbells, 2 sets of warm-ups. She then added, my muscles do not seem adequately prepped, and I do 2 sets of 10 reps for each warm-up set. Any suggestions how I can use the warm-up sets better to prepare my muscles before my working sets?
If her working sets are with 45 pounds, then her warm-up should be
maybe half of that.
20, with 15 to 20. It's a warm-up, not a pre-exhaust the muscles set.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Can I just add to that, even though I'm not one of the training coaches?
Yeah, sure.
To make sure you're actually activating the muscles that are going to be used. Because if you're doing a light weight, it's very easy just to go through the motion. But make sure you're packing your lats, you're activating your pecs, you're, you know, getting your arms in the correct alignment, because you should be able to do that same movement with a broomstick and activate your muscles just by tightening everything the way it needs to be tightened. So form check.
Awesome. I think that's it, guys. Let me look. Yeah, that's it. Guys, we will be back here. Yeah, we'll be back here.
Going back to the dextrose.
Malcolm, I said that's it. I said that's it. It's
This is the
time.
one I take. All right, bye. Peace. See you guys later.
I'm teasing. Go ahead, man. Do it.
This is the one that remember we talked about last time? This is the one I take. So any of you guys want to screenshot this or whatever? This is the one.
Yeah, you'll notice up there above the word Caro, it says 0 grams high fructose corn syrup. They do make a version that has high fructose corn syrup. They also make the versions that don't. And the non-high fructose corn syrup is basically pure glucose or pure sucrose syrup.
Yeah, basically you have to watch out because there's a Caro Light.
Yeah.
And there's a Caro Clear or something like that. You don't want just that it's clear in color. It has to say light, and it has to have the text that says 0 high fructose.
Yeah, just like this one.
Very much, exactly.
Yep. So there you go. With real vanilla.
That's it. Bye. Peace. Have a good night.
All right, guys. We'll be back here next time, next week, same time, and we'll be most of us together in San Diego. So you'll have all of us weirdly standing around a laptop. So talk to you guys
All in the same room.
Oh, except from Malcolm, who said,
And me, I'm not going out. But
Lynette, you bought a plane ticket, so you're basically going to be there in spirit. Malcolm just said, "Forget it, I don't love you guys anymore." So, all good. Nah, I'm teasing. Talk to you guys later. We'll see you guys.
See you guys.